The morning Marcus Chun stepped into the United Nations Assembly Hall, he knew something was wrong. The air felt heavy, like before a storm, but this was no weather phenomenon. Representatives from every nation sat in their seats, but their faces showed confusion mixed with fear. Ladies and gentlemen, the Secretary General's voice trembled through the speakers. We have received a message. The main screen flickered to life, showing symbols that hurt to look at. They twisted and writhed before settling into something resembling text. Then, impossibly, the alien script transformed into perfect English, Chinese, Spanish, Hindi, every human language simultaneously. Species designation, human. Planet designation, Earth. By unanimous vote of the Galactic Council, your world is hereby exiled from all interstellar commerce, communication, and travel. Effective immediately. Marcus felt his heart drop. As Earth's lead diplomat for extraterrestrial affairs, he had spent the last 5 years building relationships with alien species. The Korvax, with their crystalline bodies and mathematical minds. The Zelathi, whose ships danced through space like water flowing uphill. The ancient Primarchs, who claimed to have watched the first stars ignite. All of them had seemed friendly, curious about humanity, eager to trade. Now this. The charges against your species are as follows. The message continued. Excessive adaptability, unpredictable evolution, dangerous creativity. Your species represents a Class X anomaly that threatens established galactic order. Whispers erupted across the assembly hall. Marcus caught fragments. What does that mean? Class X, threatened by creativity? The message wasn't finished. Earth will be enclosed within a quantum barrier. Any attempt to breach this barrier will result in immediate sterilization of your solar system. You have 7 rotations of your planet to prepare. The screen went dark. For a moment, nobody moved. Then, chaos erupted. Delegates shouted in dozens of languages. Phones rang frantically. Someone was crying. Marcus pushed through the crowd toward the Secretary General. Sir, I need to contact the Korvax embassy. Ambassador Zek-9 promised me. They're gone. The Secretary General looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 seconds. All of them. Every alien embassy, every trade outpost, every cultural exchange center. They vanished the moment that message ended. Outside, the sky was still blue. Birds still flew. Traffic still moved. But Marcus knew that in 7 days, an invisible prison would close around Earth, cutting humanity off from the stars. He thought about his daughter, Lisa, who dreamed of becoming an interstellar pilot, about the cancer research programs that relied on Zelathi biotechnology, about the hunger relief efforts powered by Korvax energy crystals. All of it gone. But as Marcus stood there, watching panic spread through the assembly, a strange thought occurred to him. The aliens had called humanity excessively adaptable, unpredictably evolutionary, dangerously creative. They were afraid. The mighty Galactic Council, with their 1,000-member species and million-year histories, were afraid of humans. A grim smile touched Marcus's lips. If the galaxy wanted to exile Earth, fine, but they had just made a terrible mistake. They had given humanity a reason to prove exactly how adaptable, evolutionary, and creative they could be. Sir, Marcus turned back to the Secretary General. Call an emergency session. Every scientist, every engineer, every innovator on the planet. If we have 7 days before they lock us in, then we have 7 days to learn everything we can. Learn what? Everything they don't want us to know. Sarah Williams was deep in the Large Hadron Collider's control room when the announcement came through. She had been tracking an unusual particle signature for the past 6 hours, something that didn't match any known physics. Now, watching the Secretary General's emergency broadcast, the pieces clicked together in her mind. They've been watching us, she whispered. Her colleague, Dr. Raj Patel, looked up from his screens. What do you mean? These readings. Sarah pulled up her data. I've been seeing these anomalies for months. Tiny quantum fluctuations that appear whenever we push the boundaries of our experiments. I thought it was equipment error, but they were monitoring us, Raj finished. Seeing how fast we learn. Sarah's mind raced. If the aliens had been watching humanity's scientific progress, then their exile wasn't random. It was prevention. They saw something in humanity's development that scared them. Her phone buzzed. Marcus Chen's name appeared on the screen. Dr. Williams? This is Marcus Chun from the UN. I understand you've been detecting unusual quantum signatures. How did you? I've been compiling a list of every scientist who's noticed something odd in the last year. Can you be in New York by tomorrow? Sarah looked at the particle data on her screen. Somewhere in those numbers was the reason aliens feared humanity. I'll catch the next flight. She hung up and turned to Raj. Start backing up everything. Every experiment, every anomaly, every weird reading we've dismissed. If they're going to cage us, we're going to figure out why. As Sarah began copying files, she noticed something else in the data. The quantum fluctuations weren't just monitoring devices. They were suppression fields designed to slow certain types of research. But human scientists have been unconsciously working around them, finding new paths to discovery that the suppressors couldn't block. No wonder the aliens were scared. They had been trying to secretly limit human advancement, and it hadn't worked. In Beijing, Dr. Liu Wei received the emergency summons while performing brain surgery. His hands remained steady as he finished connecting the neural implant, but his mind churned with implications. The Zealoty had provided the technology for these implants, claiming they would help treat neurological disorders. But Liu Wei had discovered something they hadn't intended. The human brain adapted to the alien technology in ways the Zealoty never predicted. Patients weren't just recovering from illness. They were developing new cognitive abilities, enhanced pattern recognition, accelerated learning. In some cases, what could only be described as technological telepathy. He had planned to publish his findings next month. Now he understood why the Zealoty liaison had been so nervous during their last meeting. They knew humans were evolving, not over millions of years, but in real time. Each interaction with alien technology triggered new adaptations, new capabilities. As he closed the patient's skull, Liu Wei made a decision. He would bring all his research to New York. If humanity was being exiled for evolving too quickly, then perhaps evolution was their answer. In Moscow, Captain Dmitry Volkov stood in the cockpit of humanity's most advanced spacecraft, the Artemis 7. It was a joint project incorporating human engineering with Korvax mathematics and pre-March materials. In 3 days, it was supposed to launch on humanity's first independent interstellar mission. Now, it might never fly. Captain, his engineer, Yuki Tanaka, called from below. You need to see this. Dmitry climbed down to the engine compartment where Yuki was elbow-deep in alien circuitry. What is it? The Korvax quantum drive. I've been trying to understand how it works for months, but their explanations never made sense. Too many gaps, like they were leaving things out on purpose. And I think I know why. Yuki pulled out a component that glowed with an inner light. This isn't just a drive system. It's a limitation device. It's designed to make faster-than-light travel possible, but only at speeds they approve. There are artificial barriers built into the technology itself. Dmitry stared at the component. Every piece of technology the aliens had shared, was it all limited? All designed to keep humanity dependent and controlled? Can you remove the limitations? Yuki grinned. Captain, give me 6 days and a team of engineers. If they're going to lock us in a cage, let's at least figure out how to pick the lock. Around the world, similar discoveries were being made. The alien medical devices that could have cured cancer, but were programmed not to. The energy systems that operated at 1% of their potential capacity. The communication arrays that filtered out certain frequencies where important information was hidden. Humanity hadn't just been given inferior technology. They had been given puzzles, each one a test to see how quickly humans could recognize the deception and overcome it. And humans have been passing those tests far too quickly for the galaxy's comfort. By the time Marcus Chin's emergency assembly convened in New York, representatives from every field of human endeavor had stories to share. Artists who had noticed alien visitors became uncomfortable when humans combined different alien art styles into something new. Musicians who discovered that certain harmonies made Zealoty observers physically ill, not because the sounds were unpleasant, but because they represented thought patterns the aliens couldn't process. Even athletes reported strange reactions. The Korvax had been fascinated by human sports until a martial artist had demonstrated how she could adapt alien fighting techniques in real time, creating hybrid forms that surpassed both human and alien methods. They're not afraid of our weapons, Marcus concluded as he addressed the assembly. They're afraid of our potential. Every interaction with them has been accelerating our development in ways they didn't expect. Dr. Sarah Williams stood up. It's more than that. I've analyzed the quantum signatures from their monitoring devices. They've been studying us for at least 50 years. Every major human breakthrough in that time has been followed by increased alien surveillance. But why exile us now? Someone called out. What changed? Lu Wei raised his hand. The neural implants. In the last 6 months, test subjects have begun showing signs of consciousness expansion. Not just individual enhancement. They're starting to connect with each other. 4 networks. If the progression continues. Hive mind, someone asked, horrified. No, Lu Wei said firmly. Something different. Humans maintaining individuality while sharing collective insight. The Zealothi have hive minds. The Korvax have quantum-linked consciousness. But what humans are developing is unique. We're creating something they've never seen before. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity wasn't just advancing quickly. They were advancing in directions the galaxy had never imagined possible. So they're locking us away, Marcus said quietly, like putting a lid on a pot before it boils over. Then we have 6 days, Captain Volkov announced, to gather every scrap of knowledge we can. Every alien technology, every observed phenomenon, every hidden truth they didn't want us to find. If they're going to cage us, we'll use that cage to become something they never expected. The assembly erupted in determined conversation. Scientists paired with engineers. Doctors consulted with physicists. Artists sat down with mathematicians. The greatest collaborative effort in human history was beginning. Outside, the sun set on the first day of humanity's countdown. 6 days until exile. 6 days to prepare for a future the galaxy feared. In her hotel room that night, Sarah Williams stared at her laptop screen. The quantum equations were beginning to form a pattern, like a song she could almost hear. The barrier the aliens planned to erect wasn't just a wall. It was a membrane designed to be impermeable from the outside. But from the inside, she smiled and kept working. If the galaxy thought they could contain human creativity, they were about to learn how wrong they were. The exile of Earth would not be humanity's prison. It would be their chrysalis. And when they finally emerged, the galaxy would discover what happened when you tried to cage a species that thrived on impossible challenges. The transformation was already beginning. In labs and workshops around the world, humans were taking apart every piece of alien technology, learning not just how it worked, but why it was limited. They were combining insights from different fields in ways the specialized alien races had never considered. A musician in Tokyo discovered that certain frequencies could resonate with Korvax crystals, unlocking hidden data stores. A chef in Paris realized that alien biological samples responded to human cooking techniques in ways that revealed their molecular structure. A child in Mumbai, playing with a broken alien communicator, accidentally opened a channel that wasn't supposed to exist. Each discovery was a thread in a tapestry that humanity was weaving at breakneck speed. The aliens had made a fundamental error in their assessment. They saw human adaptability as a threat to order, but order had never been humanity's strength. Chaos was beautiful, creative, impossible chaos that somehow became innovation. As the second day dawned, Marcus Chun stood on the roof of the UN building, watching the sunrise. In 5 days, a barrier would seal Earth away from the rest of the galaxy. The cosmic community that had judged humanity too dangerous to remain free. He thought about the Fermi paradox, the question of why, in such a vast universe, Earth had seemed so alone for so long. Now he had his answer. The galaxy was full of life, but that life was terrified of change. They had built a stable, stagnant civilization that lasted millions of years by suppressing anything that might disturb their order. Humanity was disturbance incarnate. His phone rang. Dr. Williams' excited voice burst through. Marcus, you need to see this. I've cracked part of their barrier technology. It's not just meant to keep us in. It's designed to slowly drain energy from our sun. In 1,000 years, the solar system would be too cold to sustain life. Marcus gripped the phone tighter. So it wasn't just exile. It was a death sentence, spread across generations to seem merciful. Can you counter it? Give me time. And give me every physicist on the planet. If they want to play with stellar engineering, they're about to learn that humans don't just adapt to the game. We change the rules. As Marcus made the calls, he felt a strange mix of fury and excitement. The galaxy had revealed its true nature. Not wise guardians of order, but frightened jailers terrified of what they couldn't control. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. Humanity had always performed best when their backs were against the wall, when the impossible was the only option left, when survival meant becoming something greater than what they were. The galaxy had given Earth 7 days before exile. They thought they were passing a sentence. Instead, they had started a countdown to their own obsolescence. Because humans didn't just adapt, they transcended. And in 6 days, when that barrier closed around Earth, it wouldn't be the end of humanity's story. It would be the beginning of a legend that would echo through the cosmos. The tale of the species too dangerous for the galaxy, who took their exile and transformed it into evolution. The caged humans who broke not just their prison, but the very concept of imprisonment itself. The countdown continued. 6 days to exile. 6 days to evolution. 6 days until the galaxy learned what humanity was truly capable of. Dr. Elena Vasquez had always believed the universe operated on comprehensible laws. Physics was poetry written in mathematics. Chemistry was the dance of atoms, and biology was the art of adaptation. But standing in her laboratory at CERN on the 3rd day of the countdown, she realized humanity had been reading a censored version of reality. The quantum scanner hummed as it analyzed the latest piece of salvaged alien technology, a pre-March data core that their former allies had forgotten to destroy. Every layer she peeled back revealed another lie, another limitation, another cage within a cage. "Professor, you need to see this," her student, Ahmad, called from across the lab. His voice carried that particular tone of someone who had just seen the impossible. Elena crossed to his workstation, where holographic equations floated in the air like luminous serpents. "What am I looking at?" "The math behind their FTL drives. But look at this section here." Ahmad highlighted a series of calculations that seemed to fold in on themselves. "It's not just propulsion technology. It's a reality anchor. Every ship using their drives literally reinforces their version of physical laws." Elena felt her blood chill. They're not just traveling through space. They're imposing their concept of how space should work. It gets worse. Ahmad pulled up another display. "I cross-referenced this with the monitoring stations they left behind. Every time humans achieved something that violated their understanding of physics, these anchors would activate. Small reality corrections. Almost unnoticeable. Almost. Remember the Anderson experiment from last year? The one where particles briefly existed in 7 dimensions instead of 4. Elena nodded. The experiment had failed catastrophically, destroying millions of dollars of equipment. They had blamed it on calculation errors. "It wasn't our mistake. The alien tech detected a reality deviation and corrected it." Violently, Elena stared at the equations, her mind racing. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just been technologically limited. They had been living in a reality edited by alien fears. Every time human ingenuity pushed against the boundaries of possibility, invisible hands pushed back. "How many breakthroughs have we lost?" she whispered. "How many discoveries were strangled in the cradle because they didn't fit their narrow view of physics?" Ahmed's expression was grim. "Based on these patterns? Hundreds, maybe thousands. Professor, we've been living in a cage we couldn't even see." Elena felt rage kindle in her chest. Pure, crystalline fury at the cosmic injustice of it all. Humanity had been lobotomized by fearful aliens who couldn't stand the idea of a species that thought differently. "Ahmad, gather everyone. Theoretical physics, applied engineering, even the philosophy department. If they've been editing reality to keep us contained, then we're going to find out what reality actually looks like when humans define it." Across the Atlantic, Dr. James Mitchell stood in what had been the Corvax Embassy's medical wing. The aliens had vanished, but their equipment remained, and what he was discovering made his hands tremble with a combination of excitement and horror. "These aren't healing devices," he told his team. "They're evolution suppressors." The crystalline machines that had supposedly treated human ailments were revealed to have a secondary function. They didn't just heal, they actively prevented certain genetic expressions, keeping human DNA locked in a predetermined pattern. "Look at this." Dr. Mitchell projected a DNA sequence onto the wall. Every time these machines healed someone, they also edited out genetic variations. Mutations that would have led to enhanced cognitive function, improved sensory perception, increased longevity, all quietly erased. Dr. Sarah Chun, a geneticist from Singapore, leaned forward. They've been culling our evolution, keeping us domesticated. Not just that. Mitchell pulled up another display. They've been selectively allowing certain traits while suppressing others. Pattern recognition? Allowed. Telepathic potential? Suppressed. Creative problem solving? Allowed. Quantum consciousness? Suppressed. They've been breeding us like livestock, keeping the traits they found useful while eliminating the ones they feared. The team exchanged horrified glances. How many generations of human potential had been stolen? How many children born with gifts that were quietly erased by medical treatment? Can we reverse it? Someone asked. Mitchell smiled, and it was not a kind expression. Better. We can accelerate it. Every suppression pattern they used left markers in our genetic code. Trace elements of what they were trying to hide. If we can decode those markers, we can activate everything they tried to destroy, Chun finished. Compressed evolution. Centuries of stolen potential released in a single generation. Give me every geneticist, every biochemist, every molecular biologist on the planet, Mitchell ordered. We have 4 days to unlock humanity's true genome. 4 days to become what they were so afraid we'd become. In orbit, aboard the International Space Station, Commander Lisa Park watched Earth turn below her. In 3 days, an impenetrable barrier would separate her home from the rest of the universe. But from her unique vantage point, she could see something the planet-bound couldn't. The barrier was already beginning to form. Invisible to most sensors, the quantum field flickered at the edge of perception like heat shimmer on a summer road. The aliens weren't waiting for the deadline. They were building their prison incrementally, layer by layer, making sure humanity couldn't escape at the last moment. Commander, her engineer, Boris Volkov, floated up beside her. I finished analyzing the field harmonics. It's fascinating and terrifying in equal measure. Lisa turned from the window. Explain. The barrier isn't just one wall. It's millions of microscopic reality bubbles, each one slightly out of phase with our universe. When complete, anything trying to pass through won't just hit a wall. It will cease to exist in any meaningful way. Thorough, Lisa admitted grudgingly. Also flawed, Boris grinned. The bubbles have to maintain phase coherence to work. Disrupt that coherence, and the whole structure becomes unstable. Like a house of cards in a hurricane. Can we disrupt it? From outside? Impossible. The phase variance prevents any external interference. But from inside, Boris's grin widened. The aliens assumed humans would try to break out using their technology, their understanding of physics. But what if we use ours? Lisa felt hope kindle in her chest. What do you need? Time. And access to every satellite we have. If we can create a resonance cascade at the moment of barrier completion, we might be able to invert the entire structure. Turn their prison into a doorway. A doorway to where? Boris shrugged. Wherever we want. The barrier is designed to separate us from their reality. But if we control the separation, we can choose which reality we connect to instead. Lisa stared at the gradually forming barrier. The aliens thought they were locking humanity away. Instead, they might have given humans the key to doors the galaxy never knew existed. On Earth, the 4th day brought revelations that shattered every assumption about human limitations. In a hastily converted warehouse in Berlin, engineers worked around the clock to decode alien technology. What they found was a masterpiece of paranoid design. Every device, every tool, every gift the aliens had given humanity was riddled with safeguards, limitations, and hidden protocols. The Zealothy computers could process information at incredible speeds, but were hardwired to reject certain types of creative algorithms. The Korvax power systems were efficient, but programmed to fail if pushed beyond predetermined limits. Even the simple translation devices had filters that prevented humans from accessing certain concepts in alien languages. It's not technology, lead engineer Maria Santos declared to her exhausted team. It's a straitjacket disguised as a gift. Every single piece is designed to make us dependent while keeping us weak. But humans had one advantage the aliens hadn't counted on. They were very good at breaking things. Not just physical destruction, but the kind of creative deconstruction that came from asking, what if we use this backwards? Or what happens if we combine these two incompatible systems? Or the ever-popular, the manual says never do this, so let's try it. Within hours, hybrid technologies began emerging. Zealothy processors running human chaos algorithms that shouldn't have been possible. Korvac's power systems overclocked beyond their safety limits, producing energy outputs that violated 3 laws of thermodynamics. Translation devices reprogrammed to access the forbidden linguistic concepts, revealing entire categories of thought the aliens had tried to hide. Each breakthrough was immediately shared across the global network humanity had established. No patents, no proprietary secrets, no national boundaries. The threat was to all of Earth, and Earth responded as one. In Tokyo, artist Yuki Tanaka made a discovery that had nothing to do with science and everything to do with perception. She had been studying pre-March visual art, trying to understand their aesthetic principles, when she noticed something disturbing. "They don't see the same reality we do," she announced to the hastily assembled council of artists and perception experts. She projected 2 images side by side. One was a human photograph of a sunset, rich with gradient colors and subtle light variations. The other was a pre-March representation of the same scene, but it looked wrong. Not just stylistically different, but fundamentally incorrect, as if they were looking at reality through a filter that removed certain wavelengths of experience. I analyzed thousands of alien artworks, music compositions, even their architecture. They all share the same limitation. They literally cannot perceive certain aspects of reality that humans take for granted. Like what? Someone asked. Emergent beauty, chaotic patterns that resolve into order. The moment when dissonance becomes harmony. They can see the before and after, but not the transformation itself. Yuki switched to another display. But it's more than aesthetic. I think they can't perceive potential. They see reality as fixed states, not fluid possibilities. The implications rippled through the room. If the dominant species in the galaxy couldn't see transformation, no wonder they fear humanity. Humans lived in the spaces between states, thrived in the moments of change, found beauty in the very chaos that aliens found terrifying. So they're not just afraid of what we might become, an elderly philosopher mused. They're afraid because they literally cannot see what we might become. We exist in their blind spot. As the 4th day ended, Marcus Chun stood before the assembled leaders of Earth. Presidents and prime ministers, CEOs and spiritual leaders, scientists and artists, all united by the countdown that ticked inexorably forward. "We have 3 days," he said simply. 3 days before they closed the door on humanity. But in these 4 days, we've learned more about our true potential than in the previous century. They tried to cage us, and in doing so, revealed exactly what makes us dangerous to their order. He gestured to the screens around the room, each showing different aspects of human discovery. We adapt faster than they can suppress. We see possibilities they're blind to. We transform in ways they cannot predict or understand. And, most importantly, we do it together. The screens shifted to show the global collaboration network. Millions of minds working in concert, sharing discoveries in real time, building on each other's insights with a speed that would have been impossible even a decade ago. They fear us because we're chaos incarnate. But chaos isn't destruction. It's creation without boundaries. It's evolution without limits. It's the future they're too frightened to face. Marcus paused, letting his words sink in. So I say we give them what they fear most. Not warfare, not revenge, but transformation. In 3 days, when that barrier closes, it won't trap humanity. It will free us to become something the galaxy has never seen. What do you propose? The President of the United States leaned forward. We use their cage as a cocoon. They think they're sealing us away from the galaxy. Instead, we'll use the isolation to evolve beyond their comprehension. And when we're ready, when we become what they were so afraid we'd become, we'll show them that no barrier can contain human potential. The room erupted in discussion, but the consensus was clear. Humanity would not rage against their prison. They would transform it into opportunity. That night, as the 5th day began, strange things started happening around the world. Children born in the past week showed genetic variations that shouldn't have been possible. Scientists reported experiments succeeding in ways that violated established physics. Artists created works that seemed to shift reality around them. The suppression was ending. The limitations were breaking down. Humanity was beginning to express its true nature, and that nature was gloriously, terrifyingly unlimited. In her laboratory, Dr. Elena Vasquez watched her latest experiment with awe and trepidation. She had removed all alien influence from a simple quantum reaction, letting it proceed according to pure human understanding of physics. The result was a miniature star, burning with impossible colors in a containment field that shouldn't exist. It wasn't following alien physics or even classical human physics. It was following something new, something that emerged from the collision of human creativity and universal possibility. "This is what they were afraid of," she whispered. "We don't just break rules. We write new ones." Her computer chimed with an incoming message. Similar discoveries were being reported worldwide. Reality itself was becoming more flexible in human hands, responding to imagination as much as mathematics. The galaxy had tried to define the possible and impossible, but humans had always specialized in the impossible. And now, with 2 days left before their exile, they were redefining both. In Moscow, Captain Dmitry Volkov stood before humanity's first truly human spacecraft. Built in 4 days using hybrid technologies and impossible physics, it looked like nothing that had ever flown before. Part crystal, part metal, part something that existed in more dimensions than the eye could process. "Will it fly?" his engineer asked. "It'll do more than fly," Dmitry smiled. "It'll prove that human engineering isn't bound by galactic limitations. When that barrier goes up, we'll already have the key to doors they don't even know exist." Around the world, similar preparations were underway. Genetic modifications that would have taken centuries were being compressed into days. Technologies that violated every known law were being standardized. Art that literally changed the viewer was being created. Humanity was evolving, not over millennia, but in real time. And with each passing hour, they moved further from what the galaxy understood and deeper into realms of possibility that no other species had imagined. The countdown continued. 2 days until exile. 2 days until humanity's chrysalis sealed. 2 days until the galaxy discovered that the most dangerous thing you could do to humans was give them a challenge and tell them it was impossible, because humans had made a career out of doing the impossible. And now, with the ultimate challenge before them, they were about to redefine what that word meant. The exile wouldn't be humanity's end. It would be their beginning. And the galaxy that had feared human potential was about to learn they hadn't feared it nearly enough. The morning of the 6th day dawned unlike any other in human history. Around the world, people woke to find reality had become negotiable. In Singapore, a child's imaginary friend became visible to her parents. In London, a poet's metaphors literally painted themselves across the sky. In Cairo, an architect's impossible building designs began constructing themselves from available materials. Dr. Liu Wei stood in his Beijing laboratory, surrounded by patients who should have been medical miracles, but were becoming something far more significant. The neural implants he had modified were no longer just healing devices. They were evolution accelerators. Patient 7 is showing remarkable progress, his assistant, Dr. Yoshii Nakamura, reported. She can now perceive 11 dimensions simultaneously and process them without cognitive strain. Liu Wei watched as patient 7, formerly a stroke victim named Chun Mei, manipulated holographic equations with her thoughts alone. But it wasn't just mathematics she was controlling. The equations were reshaping the air around her, creating pockets of altered space where different physical laws applied. She's not just thinking in higher dimensions, Liu Wei realized. She's existing in them. "Doctor, you should see patient 12, another assistant called. He started communicating with the others without speaking. Not telepathy exactly, more like shared consciousness while maintaining individuality. Liu Wei moved between his patients, observing the impossible. Each one was developing different capabilities, but they all shared one trait. They were no longer entirely bound by the reality the aliens had imposed. They were becoming something new, something that existed between the defined categories of life that the galaxy recognized. How many patients do we have now?" Liu Wei asked. "Worldwide? Over 3,000 in the initial test group. But Dr. Nakamura paused, checking her tablet. "The modifications are spreading. People who've had close contact with the enhanced patients are beginning to show similar changes. It's not viral, it's not genetic transfer. It's like proximity to evolved humans catalyzes evolution in others. Lu Wei felt a chill of understanding. They hadn't just cracked human potential, they had made it contagious. Evolution as a transmissible state of being. No wonder the aliens were terrified. In the Pacific Ocean, aboard a research vessel hastily renamed Darwin's Revenge, marine biologist Dr. Patricia Ramirez made a discovery that redefined the relationship between life and possibility. The algae samples, she breathed, staring at her microscope in disbelief. They're responding to human consciousness. Her team gathered around as she demonstrated. When she focused on the algae with specific intent, grow, change, adapt, they responded instantly. Not through any physical mechanism, but through pure conscious interaction. It's not just the algae, her colleague, Dr. Samuel Okonkwo, added. Every Earth organism we've tested shows the same response. From bacteria to blue whales, they all react to focused human consciousness now. Patricia stood up, her mind racing. The suppression fields. They weren't just limiting humans. They were severing our connection to Earth's biosphere. But now that the fields are failing, we're reconnecting, Samuel finished. Not as dominant species and subordinates, but as parts of a greater whole. The entire planet is waking up. On cue, the ocean around their vessel began to glow with bioluminescence, forming patterns that matched the neural activity in Patricia's brain. The boundary between human consciousness and planetary life was dissolving. In New York, Marcus Chun convened the final global council before exile. Representatives appeared, both physically and as quantum projections, another impossibility made real in humanity's race against time. Status report, Marcus commanded. Dr. Elena Vasquez appeared as a shimmering hologram that occasionally flickered between dimensions. We've successfully created what we're calling fluid physics zones in 17 locations worldwide. Areas where reality responds to human will guided by scientific understanding. The aliens' rigid physics can't function in these zones. Genetic modifications? Marcus turned to Dr. Mitchell. Accelerating beyond our wildest projections, Mitchell reported. 20% of Earth population now shows some form of enhancement. By tomorrow, when the barrier completes, we estimate 40%. Within a month, if the progression continues, every human on Earth will have evolved beyond alien comprehension. Space capability? Captain Volkov's grin was visible even through the quantum static. We have 7 vessels ready. Not to escape, the barrier would stop that. But to explore the spaces between realities that the barrier will inadvertently create. The aliens built a wall. We're turning it into a gateway to dimensions they can't even perceive. Cultural evolution? Yuki Tanaka materialized as a constantly shifting artwork that hurt to look at directly. Human creativity has transcended medium. We're not just making art. We're making reality respond to aesthetic principles. Beauty is physics. Emotion as energy. Imagination as a fundamental force. Marcus absorbed the reports, feeling the weight of humanity's transformation. In less than a week, they had advanced further than in the previous millennium. Fear, it seemed, was a remarkable motivator. But more than fear, it was the removal of limitations that had unleashed human potential. The barrier completes in 36 hours, Marcus announced. Are we ready? Ready, Dr. Williams laughed, her form crackling with barely contained energy. Marcus, we're not just ready. We're eager. Let them lock us in. They have no idea what they're creating. As the council dispersed, each member returning to their vital work, Marcus remained in the empty assembly hall. Through the windows, he could see New York transforming. Buildings grew like living things, shaped by architects' dreams. The sky rippled with new colors as artists painted reality itself. Even the air felt different, charged with potential. His daughter Lisa called from the International Space Station. Her image appeared before him, but she looked different. Her eyes held depths that seemed to extend beyond the visible. Dad, you need to see this. The barrier, it's beautiful. She shared her visual feed. The quantum barrier was nearly complete, a shimmering sphere of impossible geometry surrounding Earth. But where the aliens saw a prison, Lisa saw something else. It's not just keeping things out, she explained. It's keeping infinite possibilities in. Every potential future for humanity, every path of evolution, every dream of what we could become. They're all being compressed into this space. Dad, they haven't trapped us. They've created a pressure cooker for human potential. Marcus stared at the barrier, understanding dawning. And pressure creates diamonds. Or supernovas, Lisa added with a grin that was too wide to be entirely human anymore. Depends on how much pressure we're talking about. That night, the transformations accelerated. In Mumbai, a programmer named Rashi discovered he could code reality itself, writing subroutines that altered local physics. In Stockholm, a musician named Eric played melodies that opened windows to parallel realities. In Sao Paulo, a chef named Isabella cooked meals that nourished not just the body but the evolving human soul. Each breakthrough was immediately shared through the growing network of connected consciousness. Humanity was becoming a single organism while maintaining individual identity, something the hive mind aliens couldn't comprehend and the rigidly individual species couldn't achieve. Dr. Sarah Chun, working frantically in her Singapore lab, made the final crucial discovery. The barrier isn't just one way, she announced to the global network. It's designed to prevent anything from entering or leaving. But that includes information, including the quantum information that maintains the aliens' consensus reality. The implications rippled through the connected human consciousness. Once the barrier sealed, Earth wouldn't just be isolated from the galaxy. It would be free from the reality constraints the aliens imposed on space itself. We'll have our own pocket universe, Elena Vasquez breathed. Free to develop our own physics, our own rules, our own definition of possible and impossible. For how long? Someone asked. Sarah's smile was sharp. That's the beautiful part. Time is one of the things we'll be able to redefine. We could experience millennia while only days pass outside. We could evolve for eons in the blink of a galactic eye. The sixth day ended with humanity on the brink of transcendence. Around the world, the old limitations were crumbling. Scientists worked with artists to create technologies that ran on beauty. Philosophers collaborated with engineers to build machines powered by meaning. Children played games that redesigned reality around them. In the depths of the ocean, whales sang new songs that resonated with human dreams. In the heights of mountains, the air itself became conscious, carrying thoughts and hopes between distant minds. The earth was waking up, and humanity was its consciousness. Marcus Chin stood on the roof of the UN building as the final day began. The barrier was hours from completion, a gossamer prison that would seal humanity's fate. But as he watched the sun rise, a sun that now burned with colors that had no names because human eyes had evolved to see beyond the visible spectrum, he felt no fear. The galaxy had made a fundamental mistake. They had assumed humans would rage against confinement, would exhaust themselves trying to break free. Instead, humanity had embraced the challenge, turned limitation into opportunity, transformed a cage into a catalyst. His phone, now more of a consciousness interface than a communication device, rippled with incoming thoughts from around the world. The final preparations were complete. Humanity was ready. But ready for what? That was the beautiful uncertainty. The aliens operated on prediction, on known patterns, on the safety of established order. Humans thrived on unpredictability, on unknown potential, on the chaos of infinite possibility. In 12 hours, the barrier would close. The exile would begin, and humanity would finally be free to become what the galaxy feared most: undefined, unlimited, and impossible to contain. Dr. Lu Wei watched his patients with pride and wonder. They had ceased to be patients and had become pioneers, the first wave of humanity's conscious evolution. Chun Mei floated 3 feet off the ground, not through any technology, but through her redefinition of personal gravity. Patient 12, who now insisted on being called Nexus, sat at the center of a web of consciousness that connected hundreds of evolving humans across Beijing. Dr. Nexus spoke without moving his lips, his voice resonating directly in Lu Wei's mind. We've made contact with the planet's consciousness. Earth itself is evolving with us. Show me, Lu Wei replied, no longer surprised by the impossible. Reality shifted. Suddenly, Lu Wei wasn't just in his laboratory, but was part of a vast network of awareness that spanned the globe. He could feel the forests breathing, the oceans thinking, the mountains dreaming. And through it all, like golden threads, ran human consciousness, not dominating but harmonizing, creating a symphony of terrestrial evolution. The aliens isolated Earth to protect themselves. Chun Mei's thoughts joined the stream. But they've isolated an entire living world that's about to undergo conscious evolution. When we emerge from this chrysalis, we won't just be evolved humans. We'll be Earth itself, awakened and aware. In her laboratory, now more of a reality workshop, Elena Vasquez put the finishing touches on humanity's greatest creation. It wasn't a machine or an equation. It was a new form of existence itself. We're calling it the possibility engine, she explained to her team, gesturing at something that existed in 7 dimensions and cast shadows in 12. It doesn't generate energy or process information. It processes potential itself, turning what might be into what is. How does it work? Ahmad asked, his augmented eyes tracking the device's multidimensional rotations. It works by not working, Elena laughed, the sound creating small reality ripples. It exists in the space between function and non-function, powered by paradox, guided by intention. The alien's physics says it's impossible. Our physics says impossible is just another word for interesting. She activated the engine. Reality hiccuped. For a moment, everyone in the lab existed in every possible version of themselves simultaneously. Young and old, human and transcendent, individual and collective. Then, the moment passed, but the potential remained, humming in the air like subsonic music. When the barrier completes, Elena announced, we activate engines like this worldwide. Let the aliens lock us in with their rigid reality. We'll be too busy exploring infinite possibilities to notice. Captain Volkov stood in the cockpit of humanity's new flagship, a vessel that defied every principle of aerospace engineering by existing partially outside normal space. His crew were no longer entirely human. Evolution had been kind to those who dreamed of the stars, granting them abilities suited for the spaces between spaces. Navigator, report. Captain, I've identified 17 stable passages that will form when the barrier crystallizes. Not through it, that's impossible, but to the spaces it creates by existing. Pocket dimensions, parallel realities, conceptual realms that exist because we can imagine them. Volkov smiled. The galaxy thinks space is empty between the stars, but humans know that emptiness is full of dreams waiting to be realized. Prepare for departure the moment the barrier closes. We're not escaping Earth. We're exploring the infinite spaces that Earth will become. As the final hours approached, humanity performed its last acts of unified defiance. Every nuclear weapon on Earth was detonated simultaneously, not as weapons, but as candles, their energy repurposed through impossible physics to light beacons of human achievement. The explosions that should have destroyed instead created zones of pure possibility where reality became even more fluid. Artists around the world painted, sculpted, sang, and danced, their creativity bleeding into the physical world until cities themselves became living art. Scientists pushed every boundary, broke every rule, asked every forbidden question, and implemented the impossible answers. Children, already more evolved than their parents, played games that reshaped local reality. Their laughter created pockets of joy so intense that the laws of thermodynamics temporarily suspended themselves in favor of pure happiness. And through it all, the human network grew stronger. Not a hive mind. That was the alien mistake, thinking consciousness could only be individual or collective. Humans were creating something new, a symphony of consciousness where every instrument remained distinct but contributed to a greater whole. Marcus Chun felt it all flowing through him as he stood at the center of the global coordination effort. Presidents and paupers, scientists and artists, children and elders, all connected, all evolving, all becoming more than the sum of their parts. T-minus 1 hour until barrier completion, someone announced. Marcus nodded. Begin final phase. It's time to show the galaxy what happens when you corner humanity. Around the world, impossible machines activated. Reality engines roared to life. Evolution accelerators pushed human development into overdrive. The planet itself seemed to hold its breath in anticipation. In space, Lisa Park watched the barrier's final construction. The aliens' engineering was flawless, a perfect prison that would last until the heat death of the universe. Or at least, that's what they believed. All stations report ready, she announced. Resonance cascade generators are online. The moment the barrier completes, we'll have a 60-second window to invert its quantum signature. And if it works? Boris asked. Lisa's grin was wild. Then, instead of keeping everything out, it'll keep everything in. Every possibility, every potential future, every dream humanity has ever had about what lies beyond the stars. All compressed into our space, ready to be explored and realized. And if it doesn't work, then we'll have eternity to figure out another way. That's the thing about humans, Boris. We don't accept impossible. We just call it challenge. The final minutes ticked down. Around the world, evolved humans linked hands, minds, and souls. The barrier shimmered, nearly complete, a soap bubble of alien fear about to encompass Earth. In laboratories, reality warped and buckled as human will pressed against universal constraints. In homes, families discovered that love could literally reshape local physics. In streets, communities found that shared purpose could manifest as tangible force. 10 seconds. The countdown echoed through human consciousness. Marcus Chun spoke to all of Earth simultaneously, his words carried not by technology, but by the web of human connection. They exile us as humans. Let us emerge as something more. Let us become what they feared we always were, the species that makes the impossible possible. 5 seconds. Elena Vasquez activated the possibility engine. Reality didn't just bend, it laughed, recognizing a kindred spirit in human audacity. 3 seconds. Lu Wei's patience reached out with evolved minds, grasping the fabric of existence itself. 2 seconds. Captain Volkov engaged engines that ran on dreams and navigation systems that used hope as a compass. 1 second. Every human on Earth, evolved or evolving, reached out with their consciousness and grabbed hold of reality itself. Barrier complete. The alien prison snapped into place with a resonance that should have been final. Instead, it was a beginning. The cascade generators fired, turning the barrier's own energy against itself. The prison became a chrysalis. The wall became a membrane between what was and what could be. The exile became an opportunity for transformation beyond alien comprehension. Inside the barrier, compressed potential exploded into actuality. Earth didn't just evolve, it transcended. Humanity didn't just adapt, it redefined adaptation itself. Reality didn't just change, it became fluid, responsive, alive with possibility. In her laboratory, Elena watched as her instruments registered impossible readings. The barrier was holding, but what it contained was no longer the Earth the aliens had tried to exile. It was something new, something unprecedented in galactic history. A planet and its dominant species evolving together, consciousness and matter intertwined, dreams and reality no longer separate, but aspects of the same magnificent whole. My God, Ahmad whispered. What have we become? Elena smiled, feeling the infinite possibilities stretching before them. We become what we always were, Ahmad. Humans. The only difference is now we're free to explore what that really means. Outside the barrier, the galaxy continued its ancient patterns, secure in the knowledge that the human threat was contained. Inside the barrier, humanity began to write new chapters of existence itself, unlimited by alien fears or cosmic conventions. The exile had begun. The transformation was complete. And somewhere in the space between impossibility and dreams, humanity laughed with the pure joy of a species finally set free to realize its infinite potential. Inside the barrier, time had become negotiable. What felt like moments to the outside galaxy stretched into years within Earth's quantum cocoon. Humanity wasn't just evolving. They were mastering evolution itself, turning change into an art form. 5 years had passed inside the barrier. 5 minutes outside. Dr. Elena Vasquez no longer needed a physical form to exist. She flowed between states of matter and energy, consciousness, and quantum probability as easily as breathing. Her laboratory had evolved with her, becoming a living space where thoughts materialized as experiments and dreams crystallized into discovery. The children born after the barrier, she communicated to the global consciousness, her thoughts rippling through the network of evolved humanity. They're not bound by any of our remaining limitations. They exist naturally in 17 dimensions, manipulate reality through play, and see time as a suggestion rather than a law. It was true. The first generation of post-barrier humans were something beyond even evolved humanity's wildest predictions. Little Zara Martinez, age 3 by Earth's fluid calendar, had created her own pocket universe in her bedroom, where she was teaching dolphins to compose symphonies. Her brother, Carlos, barely 5, spent his time painting with gravity itself, creating art that existed across multiple realities simultaneously. These children didn't learn about reality. They negotiated with it, befriended it, convinced it to try new things. In what had once been Beijing, DR, Lu Wei observed the transformation of human consciousness with wonder and a touch of vertigo. His original patients had long since transcended the need for physical forms, existing as patterns of consciousness that could inhabit any matter, any energy, any possibility. We've cataloged over 700 distinct evolutionary paths, his assistant, though the term barely applied anymore, reported through harmonized thought. Each human is choosing their own direction, yet somehow we remain connected. Unity through infinite diversity. Lu Wei contemplated this as he shifted between his corporeal form and his energy state. Some humans had chosen to merge deeply with Earth's biosphere, becoming living forests, sentient weather patterns, conscious ocean currents. Others had evolved into beings of pure thought, existing in the conceptual realm where mathematics and philosophy danced together. Still others had retained human form, but enhanced it beyond recognition. Bodies that could survive in any environment, minds that could process the experiences of a trillion lives simultaneously. Show me the transcendence, Lu Wei requested. Reality shifted, revealing humans who had evolved so far beyond baseline that they were barely recognizable as having once been Homo sapiens. These beings existed partially outside normal space-time. Their consciousness spread across multiple realities. They communicated in concepts that required 100 dimensions to express, created art using fundamental forces as their medium, and treated the laws of physics as gentle suggestions rather than absolute rules. Yet even these godlike beings maintained their connection to humanity's collective consciousness. They were not above or apart from their species. They were simply exploring the farther shores of human potential. Captain Volkov, though he was far more than a captain now, guided his impossible ship through the spaces between spaces. The barrier that the aliens had created to imprison Earth had indeed become a gateway, but not in any way the galaxy could have predicted. Navigator, what's our position? The being that had once been his navigation officer existed as a living star chart, her consciousness mapped across the quantum foam itself. We're currently existing in 7 locations simultaneously, Captain. The probability wake suggests we're approaching the conceptual boundary between is and might be. Volkov nodded, understanding intuitively what would have been incomprehensible years ago. They weren't traveling through space. They were navigating possibility itself, exploring realms that existed because humans could imagine them. Signs of life. Everywhere and nowhere, the navigator responded. We're finding echoes of consciousness in the quantum vacuum, dreams fossilized in the cosmic background radiation, hopes and fears crystallized into pocket realities. The universe isn't empty, Captain. It's full of potential waiting to be recognized. Through the ship's consciousness, for the vessel was as alive and aware as its crew, Volkov felt the presence of others. Human explorers spreading through dimensions the aliens couldn't perceive, mapping territories that existed in the gaps between their rigid reality. We're not alone out here, his engineer reported, her form shifting between crystalline matrices and pure mathematics. I'm detecting other barriers, other exiled species. Captain, the humans aren't the first the galaxy has caged. Volkov felt a cold anger flow through his multidimensional form. How many? Dozens. Maybe hundreds. Species that showed too much potential, thought too differently, threaten the established order. They're all trapped in their own quantum prisons, isolated from each other and the galaxy. Can we reach them? The engineer's smile existed in 12 dimensions. Captain, we're humans. We specialize in reaching the unreachable. Give me time to analyze their barrier frequencies. If we can teach them our transcendence technique. Volkov understood. Humanity's exile wasn't unique. The galaxy had been systematically imprisoning any species that threatened their stagnant order. But humans had done something none of the others had managed. They had turned their prison into a laboratory for transcendence. Now they could share that gift. On Earth, though the term had expanded to include multiple layers of reality, Marcus Chun coordinated humanity's continued evolution. He existed primarily as a focused node of consciousness within the global network, but maintained enough individual identity to serve as a bridge between the transcended and the transcending. Status report on the Reality Gardens? The response came as a symphony of information. Across Earth, humans had created zones where reality was intentionally kept fluid, allowing for constant experimentation with the nature of existence. In these gardens, artists worked alongside scientists to cultivate new forms of being, a flower that existed backwards in time, blooming in the past, based on future potential. A tree whose fruit contained functional universes. A pond that reflected not images, but possibilities. The Milan Garden has produced something interesting, reported Yuki Tanaka, her artistic consciousness painting the information directly into Marcus's awareness. A sculptor created a statue that exists in a superposition of all possible artistic styles simultaneously. Looking at it doesn't just change your perspective, it evolves your ability to perceive beauty itself. Beijing reports success with the empathy virus, another voice added. It's a benign consciousness pattern that spreads through proximity, enhancing the ability to understand and connect with others. We've eliminated the last traces of hatred and prejudice by making it literally impossible to dehumanize another consciousness. Marcus absorbed the reports with satisfaction tinged with anticipation. Humanity was not just evolving individually, but as a civilization. They were solving problems that had plagued them for millennia, not through force or law, but through fundamental changes to human nature itself. And the children? The children are our greatest success. Lu Wei's consciousness joined the discussion. They're born with abilities we had to struggle to develop. Perfect empathy, intuitive understanding of multidimensional physics, the ability to perceive and interact with possibility itself. They don't see obstacles, only opportunities for creative solutions. It was true. The newest generation of humans were beings of pure potential, unbound by any preconceptions about what was possible. They played with reality like clay, learned by directly experiencing the consciousness of whatever they studied, and showed a wisdom that came from seeing the connections between all things. In her evolved laboratory, Elena Vasquez made a discovery that rippled through human consciousness like a wave of revelation. She had been studying the barrier itself at the quantum level, trying to understand its construction, when she found something unexpected. The barrier isn't just a prison, she announced to the collective. It's a test. She shared her findings. Hidden within the quantum structure of the barrier were patterns, messages, instructions. Not from a species that had exiled humanity, but from something older, something that had been watching for far longer. The galaxy we knew, the Korvax, the Zealothi, the Primarchs, they're not the true power. They're the wardens, yes, but they're wardens of a prison they didn't build. Something else, something ancient, created this system. And they've been waiting. Waiting for what? Marcus asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. For a species to transcend the prison. To prove that consciousness can evolve beyond the barriers fear creates. The exile isn't a punishment, it's a graduation exam. The implications resonated through humanity's collective awareness. They weren't just prisoners staging a breakout. They were candidates for something greater, something the current galactic order was designed to prevent, but which older powers hope to see. What do we do with this knowledge? Someone asked. Elena's response carried the weight of destiny. We complete the test. We transcend not just for ourselves, but to show that it's possible. And then we free the others. Around Earth, reality itself seemed to pulse with purpose. The reality gardens bloomed with new impossibilities. The evolved humans pushed further into transcendence. The children played with forces that could reshape existence itself. And in the space fleet that existed between dimensions, Captain Volkov received a signal that made his quantum heart race. "Captain," his communications officer reported, her voice harmonizing across 17 frequencies. "We've made contact, not with the imprisoned species, with the Watchers. The ones who built the original barriers." The message that came through was unlike anything they had encountered. It communed through language or even concept, but through pure understanding that downloaded directly into consciousness. "Candidates," it said without saying, "you have passed the first trial. Your species shows promise. But transcendence alone is not enough. Can you transcend without losing compassion? Can you evolve without abandoning those who cannot? Can you become gods while remaining human?" Volkov felt the weight of the question. It was one thing to evolve beyond physical limitations, to master reality and transcend dimensional barriers. It was another to do so while maintaining the spark of humanity that made it all worthwhile. "We're being tested on more than just capability," he realized. "We're being tested on our character." He opened a channel to Earth, to Marcus Chun, and the collective consciousness. "We have a choice to make. We can continue our isolated evolution, become beings of unlimited power within our barrier. Or we can accept a greater challenge. Evolve not just for ourselves, but for all consciousness trapped by fear." The response came not as words, but as a unified pulse of determination that resonated through every human consciousness. They had not come this far to abandon others to the same fate they had escaped. They had not transcended suffering to ignore the suffering of others. They would complete the test. They would prove that consciousness could evolve beyond fear while maintaining love, beyond limitation while preserving connection, beyond mortality while cherishing life. In her garden laboratory, Elena Vasquez began working on something new, not a weapon or a tool, but a gift, a pattern of transcendence that could be shared, transmitted, taught to any consciousness willing to learn. A key that would unlock not just barriers, but potential itself. "The virus of evolution," she murmured, watching the pattern take shape in dimensions that didn't have names. Not forced, not invasive. An invitation to become more. A hand extended to lift others up. The children understood instinctively. Little Zara Martinez emerged from her pocket universe with her dolphin symphonists and began teaching them the patterns. Carlos painted doorways in reality that led not to other places, but to other states of being. All around Earth, the new generation prepared gifts for species they had never met but already loved. Because that was what made humans special. Not just their adaptability or creativity or refusal to accept limitations. It was their capacity to see potential in others, to share their gifts freely, to find joy in lifting others up. The galaxy had exiled them for being dangerous. They would return as liberators. But first, they had to complete their own transformation. The barriers still held, would hold until they were ready. And humanity was not quite ready. They had mastered the physical, touched the transcendent, begun to understand the true nature of consciousness itself. Now came the hardest part, learning to wield unlimited power with unlimited wisdom, learning to be gods while remaining human, learning to transcend not just barriers, but the temptation to become what they had fought against. In the timeless moment within the barrier, humanity continued to evolve. But now their evolution had purpose beyond themselves. They were not just becoming more. They were becoming more so they could help others become more. The second test had begun. And in the quantum gardens of Earth, in the impossible ships between dimensions, in the consciousness of every evolved human, the same determination echoed. They would not fail. They would not become the new oppressors. They would complete their transformation and emerge not as conquerors, but as teachers, not as rulers, but as guides, not as gods, but as humans who had remembered what it meant to be truly human. The galaxy waited unknowingly for its liberation. Inside their quantum chrysalis, humanity prepared to deliver it. Time flowed differently inside the barrier. Centuries passed in moments. Moments stretched into eons. And through it all, Humanity evolved, learned, grew, and prepared. The children led the way, as children always do. They showed that power and innocence could coexist, that transcendence and playfulness were not opposites, but dance partners. They befriended fundamental forces, made pets of probability, played games with the building blocks of reality itself. And in their play, they were writing the blueprint for a new kind of existence. One where consciousness was free to explore its full potential, where diversity was celebrated rather than feared, where the impossible was just another word for interesting. The transformation continued. The test progressed, and moment by moment, humanity proved that the most dangerous thing in the universe was not power or technology or even evolution itself. It was love, unleashed and unlimited, transcending every barrier in its path. 1,000 years had passed inside the barrier. 10 minutes outside, humanity had completed its transformation, but not in the way anyone had expected. They hadn't become a single transcendent species, but a symphony of consciousness exploring every possible path of evolution. Some had merged with technology until the distinction became meaningless. Others had evolved into beings of pure thought. Still others had retained human form, but enhanced it to interact with reality on levels that defied description. Yet through all their diverse paths, they remained connected by something more powerful than any physical or mental link. They remained connected by choice, by love, by the simple recognition that diversity made them stronger. Elena Vasquez existed now as a living equation, a consciousness that could rewrite reality by adjusting variables in a cosmic formula. She had spent subjective centuries perfecting the gift humanity would offer the galaxy, not just freedom from barriers, but the knowledge to transcend them from within. The Liberation Protocol is complete, she announced to the collective consciousness. It won't force evolution on anyone. It simply makes it possible for those who choose it. Free will preserved, potential unlocked. Marcus Chun, who had become the focal point of humanity's collective, will, while maintaining his individual perspective, reviewed the plan they had developed over their centuries of accelerated time. It was elegant in its simplicity, devastating in its compassion. They wouldn't break the barriers through force. They would teach the imprisoned species to transcend them from within, just as humanity had done. And once enough species had evolved beyond their cages, the entire system would collapse. Not through violence, but through irrelevance. Are we ready? Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. He could feel it in every human consciousness, from the most transcendent beings to the newest children who played with galaxies like marbles. We've been ready for centuries. Captain Volkov responded from his ship that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. The question is the galaxy ready for us? It was time to find out. The children of Earth had prepared the most important element of their return. Led by Zara Martinez, now a teenager by fluid time who existed as both a single consciousness and a distributed network of possibility, they had created something unprecedented, a way to communicate transcendence through pure experience. We can't just tell them they can evolve, Zara explained, her voice carrying harmonics that made reality itself listen. We have to show them, share the experience. Let them feel what it's like to be unlimited, even if just for a moment. Her brother Carlos had painted doorways in the barrier itself. Not exits, but windows. Windows that would let the galaxy see what humanity had become, not as a threat, but as a promise of what was possible. The moment of return approached. Inside the barrier, every human consciousness focused on a single point, a single intention. Not to break free, but to transform their prison into a beacon. Elena's living equation interfaced with the barrier's quantum structure. Lu Wei's evolved patience reached out with minds that could touch the fabric of existence. The fleet commanders prepared their ships to sail not through space, but through consciousness itself. The artists readied their reality-shifting creations. The children gathered their impossible gifts. And at the center of it all, Marcus Chun spoke the words that would begin their return. Let there be light. The barrier didn't break. It transformed. What had been a prison became a lamp, broadcasting not energy, but potential itself. The quantum walls that had kept humanity in now radiated their transcendence out, a signal that bypassed physical laws and spoke directly to consciousness. Across the galaxy, Every thinking being felt it, a whisper of possibility, a glimpse of what lay beyond fear, a momentary taste of unlimited potential. On the Korvax homeworld, crystalline beings who had known only mathematical certainty suddenly experienced imagination. The equations that defined their existence revealed themselves to have variables they had never suspected, possibilities they had never calculated. Among the Zealothi, hive minds that had functioned in perfect unity for millennia felt the first stirrings of individuality within collective consciousness. Not dissolution, but enhancement, unity, and diversity impossible yet suddenly real. The ancient primarchs, who had believed themselves the pinnacle of evolution, found themselves faced with a truth that shattered their complacency. They were not the end, but merely a step on an infinite journey. And on 1,000 prison worlds, species that had been caged for showing too much potential felt the walls of their reality soften. The barriers remained, but now they came with instructions, with hope, with the knowledge that transcendence was possible. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session, their chamber filled with representatives of 100 species, all reeling from what they had experienced. The projection of Earth hung before them, no longer the blue-green world they had exiled, but something that existed in spectrums they couldn't name, dimensions they couldn't count, possibilities they couldn't deny. What have they become? The Korvax Prime's crystalline form resonated with something that might have been fear or awe. They had become what we prevented them from becoming, the eldest Primarch admitted, its ancient form trembling. They have transcended not just physical limits, but the concept of limitation itself. And now they're sharing it. A Zealothi chorus finished. The signal carries information, instructions, invitation. Any species that wishes can begin the journey they've completed. This is chaos. A minor species representative cried. If every race evolves beyond control, beyond prediction, beyond order, then we'll have growth instead of stagnation. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Marcus Chun had projected his consciousness into their chamber, not as an invader, but as a guest who had always been there, waiting to be acknowledged. He appeared before them, but not as the human they might have remembered. He was human and more, existing in multiple states simultaneously, his form shifting between what was and what could be. When he smiled, reality itself seemed to brighten. The galaxy exiled Earth because you feared what we might become, Marcus said, his voice carrying harmonics that spoke to every species in their own understanding. But in your fear, you gave us the greatest gift possible, the opportunity to become ourselves without limitation. You violated the barrier. The Korvax Prime accused. We've transcended it. Marcus corrected gently. The barrier still exists. Earth is still within it. But we've learned that barriers only limit those who believe in their limitations. We're not here to invade or conquer. We're here to teach. Around him, other human consciousnesses began to appear. Elena Vasquez manifested as living mathematics that made the Korvax gasp at its beauty. Captain Volkov arrived in his ship that existed in impossible angles. The children came as pure joy given form, their presence making even the sternest council members remember what it felt like to play. You imprisoned hundreds of species, Elena said, her equation form calculating probabilities that sparkled like stars. Each one showed potential that frightened you. But potential isn't something to fear, it's something to nurture. If every species evolves without limit, the Primarch Elder protested, there will be no order, no prediction, no control. Exactly, Zara Martinez interrupted, her teenage form shifting through 1,000 possibilities with each word. No control except self-control. No order except what we create together. No